Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar on how to prepare your firm for the future. My name is Michelle Chandler and I will be running the panel today, or moderating the panel today for our panelists. We're going to be discussing how the implementation of Netdocuments and Actionstep helps to alleviate the typical obstacles that firms struggle with, provide a more effective and streamlined and secure solution of services. The key topics that we're going to be covering today are how to effectively scale your firm with the right technologies in place, build internal and external collaboration, consolidate technologies for efficiency with ease of use, and increase productivity by spending less time on administrative tasks. Please note that there is going to be an option for you to ask questions in our Q&A section at the end of the panel discussion. So please submit questions as they come up throughout the discussion and we will for sure cover them at the end. We have a great lineup of experts today and I'd like each of them to introduce themselves. So Tamara, why don't you go ahead and start us off with the introduction.
Hi, I'm Tamara Marshall. I'm a partner with the law firm of Zanck, Coen, Wright Saladin. We're in Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is in McHenry County, which is a northwest suburb of Chicago. We have 11 attorneys. We practice an array of practice areas, but I personally focus on alternative divorce, elder law, and estate planning.
Fantastic, thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, my name is Kyle Kissel. I'm a solutions expert here at Netdocuments and somebody who just gets really excited about legal tech. So I'm excited to talk with you today about how using two best-in-class solutions can help streamline efficiencies at your law firm.
Perfect, and then James.
Hi everyone, I'm James Shorey. I'm the Director of Business Development at Actionstep. I'm specifically managing our global partnerships, marketplace and integrations, NetDocs being one of those partners we work really closely with. I've worked around sales, customer success, product marketing, lots of different areas of the system, so and the company. So yeah, I can speak on sort of how we work with our customers and how we work with our partners.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. We're so thrilled to have each of you joining us. James, I'd love to start off the panel discussion with a question for you. So why is choosing technology that won't go out of date important for law firms in order to stay ahead of market developments?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So it's incredibly important that firms, choose technology that doesn't go out of date. What I wanted to speak about on this question is scalability. So scalability is something that we sort of pride ourselves in giving to our customers. So the technology that you choose needs to scale with you. And Actionstep success stories are it's great when firms with hundreds and thousands of users come and you're interested in Actionstep and come in with all their complicated processes. But the real success stories for us are the firms who start out with 5, 10 users, they're a small local firm, and over the years using software like Actionstep and NetDocs, they actually grow to become those market leaders. So those are the guys we want to enable. And actually, at Actionstep, we realized to enable these kind of firms, we need to make sure our software is up to date at all times and also malleable enough to actually enable that development with those growing firms. Some of the things we're specifically looking at, just making sure that we have, and everyone should make sure the software has, is that the software is easy to access across various devices, meets regulatory requirements, and because those requirements will change, keeps up with those requirements, and then is compatible with all the latest versions of your other tech that you're using. So, making sure the latest version of Office 365, making sure that, whether you're iOS or Windows, making sure you're compatible with those in your latest browsers as well, really. And then obviously automatic updates, no downtime, that kind of stuff can kill productivity. And, the last thing we want to do is get in the way of people's growth and, the massive trajectory some of these firms are on.
I love that. Thank you so much. Kyle, along the same lines, just as we're thinking of firms scaling and getting more efficient, why is it important for firms to consider having a dedicated document management system as well as a law practice management system?
And that's a great question. And I think that it's an important decision that a firm needs to make for themselves. And when you're evaluating the systems, it's important to consider the outcome that you're looking for, right? Oftentimes the prospect of an all-in-one system is appealing, but firms find the old adage of being a jack of all trades and a master of none rings particularly true in legal tech. While some all-in-one systems offer practice management as well as document storage, The benefit of a true document management system like NetDocuments and a feature-rich practice management platform like Actionstep can be easily identified. Having the ability to have enforceable metadata saved into the system, improving searchability, having unique document ID numbers being assigned to files and imprinted on the footer of the document. So if paper ever makes its way to your desk or you get a copy of a file as an email attachment, you don't have to spend hours and hours looking for where that came from, right? Also, you need to make sure that things play nice together. Moving between multiple systems, especially in a work from home environment where maybe you only have one monitor, can be cumbersome. So it's important to make sure that the platforms you're evaluating play well together. And choosing two best-in-class systems with robust integrations like Actionstep and NetDocuments have helps make your life easier and enables you to respond to client requests quicker and more accurately, allowing you to provide an excellent client experience.
Those are great points, Kyle, or especially when we're thinking about that client experience and improving that, that's really where law firms win, right, in their services. So Tamara, when you guys were considering, trying to keep in mind scalability and having the best technology for the job, can you describe what process you really went through when you were considering implementing law tech and what was really most important for your firm during that process?
So where we started was we made the decision to leave the traditional local server. And the first step in that process was, well, our biggest footprint on the server were documents. And so I can't take personal credit for finding NetDocuments. One of our partners here, I think, familiarized himself with it through some tech shows, but that's really the first step we took is like, how do we manage those documents? So we got that in place. And then of course, then you start saying, okay, what are our other needs and what other technology can make things better for us and more user-friendly and client-friendly. So we looked at our needs, what are our scheduling needs? What is our client interaction needs? What are our, internally, near and dear to the lawyers' heart is, getting your billable hours in. We kind of identified all those needs. Then I looked for software. We look for software specific to the legal field because there are other sort of catch-all programs out there that don't meet the unique needs of the legal field. So once we did that, we sat through a bunch of demos and we landed on Actionstep, having already implemented NetDocuments because of the integration between the two softwares. So we really went from having 3 different software platforms to everything that speaks to each other in one place. So it was much more efficient.
Yeah, I can imagine that takes away a lot of the decision making and where am I supposed to be during the day. So that's fantastic. As we were kind of looking at those needs and really uncovering those within your firm, what are some of the main pain points that you guys kind of identified that you knew that NetDocuments and Actionstep with this integration could solve for you?
So really high up on the list were the opening and closing of matters. When we open a new file, the assistants were having to go 3 different places to open files and 3 different places to close files. So that automation between Actionstep and NetDocuments really gave us some efficiency there. NetDocuments being able to work on one document at the same time without having to send red line versions back and forth. That really was a tremendous feature. As far as Actionstep, one of my favorite features of Actionstep is that, like many firms, you're going to have people with different comfort levels of technology, and we had people that were, handwriting their time and handing it to the legal assistant to input it, and so capturing time has become so much easier with Actionstep that those folks who used to handwrite it or putting it right in their time love the feature of it. Actionstep kind of gives you suggestions with files that you've touched that day, editing their own bills. So you know, having all our documents and the back office stuff all in one place, it really, you know, did address a lot of those pain points of having accessibility to information all in one place.
I love it. That's so important, especially like you said, in a remote world where you're trying to, you know, manage everything. If you can't access something, it can just kind of like, you can just put a whole thing in a wrench in your whole day. So James, kind of going along with what Tamara was saying about how they have a wide range of users that are comfortable with technology, or maybe not so comfortable with technology. What do you believe is the best way to show for firms to show that practice management systems really make paper like paper almost redundant, and how can they really move to a paper light or paperless office as they kind of, you know, modernize their technology?
No, good question. So one of the things I love to do when I'm talking to a firm who's, Tamara, as you said, you know, still just like handing bits of paper to each other, and, you know, probably a bit frantic, probably lose some of those bits of paper, it gets a bit messy. The simplest thing is just to say, hey, theoretically, if Joe Blogs calls you up today, you know, find those files and find them within the next, you know, 5 minutes while you're on that call with him. Like, can you check you haven't got any conflicts? Can you check, you know, what their preferred email address is? You know, what did you actually represent them in last time? And the answer is always, oh, I have to walk over to my big filing cabinet and try and find that stuff. Whereas if you've got everything in one place in a case management system, in a document management system, it's as simple as typing in their name or their phone number into the search bar, and hey presto, you've got everything you need at your fingertips. So it's good for your client engagement and making sure that you're actually giving them the information that they find pertinent, but also keeping on top of the regulatory stuff as well. And I guess it's all about accessibility, really, just having access to all that data. Actually moving to a paperless office for firms trying to make that transition, on one hand, it is all about the software that you use, making sure that, you know, you have everything in the right data fields, having everything in documents which are easily searchable, so you can search within those documents to find the key data that you want. And then I guess it's just a mindset change as well, making sure that, you know, am I putting it directly as a note into my system rather than like a sticky note on my computer, which the cleaner will probably throw in the bin later. Little things like that, just making sure that you're actually recording data in the right place so it's searchable later, really is the key.
I love that. Recording data is always an important part to any improvement process. And so Tamara, kind of going back to you then, and how you guys, you know, how that's really Actionstep and NetDocuments have really helped you meet the needs of that wide range of users. Are there specific examples of how the implementation of Actionstep and NetDocuments has changed how ZCW operates in the day-to-day?
I mean, I think the short answer is we operate a lot more smoothly. I mean, we've, you know, I'm kind of at the point where I take it for granted, but I can give the example. We have a new attorney here who came from one of those, and I guess more paperful offices, and he's just blown away. He loves it. You know, he loves that he can, you know, sit down at his computer before he meets with a client. He can see, you know, if the client owes him money, or better yet, if the client, you know, has paid money, if there's been any client contact. So, I mean, I think it's just everything is more holistic. We all have the same information at the same time. You know, just more efficient. I mean, I can use one screen for sort of the practical things, like, you know, looking at my schedule and looking when was the last time somebody contacted the firm, what was said, and then, you know, my other screens get to actually have documents on them and things like that. So it's been a great transition.
And I bet that just makes such a difference in like how you feel throughout the day while you're working, right? Like if you're not having to chase down anything, or, you know, it just, I'm sure it's a relief in some ways, right?
Well, absolutely. And especially, you know, during these times, I can honestly say when, you know, everything shut down and, you know, we were all working remotely for a period of time, it was kind of no big deal for us. You know, I feel like I have to knock on wood when I say that, but, you you know, I'm glad that we were so ahead of the curve with NetDocs and Actionstep that, you know, we threw Teams in there and we were good to go. So
that's fantastic. We love hearing that. So Kyle, kind of moving over to you, you know, like Tamara was saying, with their transition to remote work, and just in general, remote work is no longer really a perk like it used to be. It's not a nice to have, it's really a needed thing that most companies in general are just implementing. And in fact, there was a report in USA Today recently that said that 30% of working professionals would quit if they were forced to return to the office, which is a significant amount. So what do you think firms should really be looking for in technology to make sure that they are set up to be successful in a remote work environment like ZCW law is now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, a flexible workforce is here to stay, whether it's all work from home or a blended environment. If you want to attract and retain the best talent, your firm has to be open to a flexible work environment because your competitors absolutely are. And truth be told, I'm one of those 30%. I love being able to work from home and go into the office when needed. And if I was forced to travel into the office every day, you know, I'd probably consider something with greater flexibility. And I'm not alone in that, right? Missing out on 3 hours of commute every day isn't lost on me, right? Plus, the ability to wear sweatpants is just an added bonus. Firms, I think, when they're looking at this, need to consider more than just flexibility in work from home. They need to choose technology that obviously allows the flexibility to work from home or court or on the beach, anywhere really, but it's important to be judicious in the selection process. Working from home is great, but you need to pick up technology that allows you to work from home as efficiently and as effectively as you would in the office. And NetDocuments, Tamara, you're not alone. We actually found that in March and April of 2020, firms leveraging NetDocuments saw a 20% increase in productivity from February, in a time where most firms were standing still or going backwards. So
right, that's because you got that commute time back.
Well, exactly, right? So I'm now working more hours.
Or whatever.
Well, and I'm not living or working from home. I'm living at work, as my wife says. So, which is great. And the flexibility can't come at the expense of security. In the legal profession, you're dealing with sensitive client information, sensitive legal documents, and any system that you need to consider has to have proven best-in-class security, not just when you're in the office or connected to a VPN, but anywhere that your users are allowed to work from. Now, Tamara, I'm curious, as you mentioned that, you know, things got better for you working from home and you were able to pick up. What has your experience been working remotely or in a blended environment in this new norm?
You know, my experience is that, you know, I don't think anything's ever going to go back to the way it was. I mean, even just, you know, meeting with potential clients. I think, you know, we're going to be meeting through Teams. We're going to be sharing documents electronically initially as part of them feeling me out, me feeling them out to see if we're a good fit. And I think that the technology is going to put more time back in their day, right? I mean, they don't have to necessarily drive a half an hour to come meet with me and decide whether they like me or not. You know, or hopefully you like your lawyer if you have to have a lawyer in your life. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, NetDocuments and Actionstep help me not just when I have a client, you know, who's hired me, but getting the clients in the door too.
That's awesome. Kyle, did you have more you wanted to add to that?
Well, and I think that, like, I had an experience a couple years ago where, you know, Tamara, I solicited the services of an attorney, much like yourself, to go through a step-parent adoption with my daughter. And having to provide information to an attorney, it was nice knowing that I could upload things to a secure client portal, as opposed to sending them, you know, we reached out to somebody and they said, oh, just email, you know, my birth certificate, my social security, pay stubs, all that information to melvin@gmail.com or something. And I was appalled. And as a client, right, having a firm that actually I ended up working with had a NetDocuments Cloudbased that they added me into, and I was able to upload my files directly to them right from there. And it was a great experience for me, not as, you know, as an end user, but as a client. And I think that's a great thing and something that's going to stay, as you mentioned, you're going to be exchanging that content digitally frequently.
Yeah, that security, absolutely. I mean, ask my malpractice carrier.
Right.
That's definitely, you don't want anybody to be able to hack into your confidential documents. And of course, going into the cloud too means that we don't have to have those physical backups. NetDocuments does that for us. So,
which is nice. A lot of firms really like that.
Yeah. So Kyle, just kind of continuing this conversation, with a more digital client relationship, email has always been a challenge for lawyers. I'm sure Tamara can say it always has been. I hear that from lawyers all the time. So, but now as we're doing these digital relationships, we've heard instances of email becoming even more common and just piling on even more than it had already. So what can a firm do to really better manage their email inbox so they don't lose out on the efficiencies that they've now gained from all this technology and this remote work, on spending even more time on email?
Absolutely. And in this, new norm of digital communications, email is the new letter, frankly, and folks' inboxes are ballooning on a daily basis, and legacy methods of managing your email inbox are falling short of your needs, and it can result in incomplete matter files, which provide a poor client experience, but can also open the firm up to risk. So attorneys, forwarding emails to paralegals or legal assistants who, frankly, for a firm your size, Tamara, could have a full-time job of just filing emails, right, in the legacy multi-click process. And NetDocuments, our thought processing is we need to have email management be intuitive, and we use artificial intelligence to do that. That's so intelligent. Emails, tell you where they need to be saved, and with just a single click, the email is saved and profiled to the appropriate location. Even if James was copied on an email or not copied in an email, but as part of the matter team, he can go in to the matter file in that single pane of glass within Actionstep and NetDocuments and see that correspondence. So we want to make things easy and transparent so that you can, minimize risk, free up efficiencies, and provide a better client experience. Now, we understand that users love Outlook folders, right? Love Outlook folders and may not want to give them up. So you need a system that's going to allow users to work within their familiar folder structure, but allows that to avoid becoming a black hole of information, as somebody said to me on a call today when I asked about their Outlook folder structure. So NetDocuments also allows those folder-driven users to link or map those folders to the matter file, so you can use Outlook rules or the drag and drop that your users are used to, ensuring that everything is in the same place.
And Carl, that comes down to obviously the interconnectivity, as I like to call it, between the different systems that you're using. So we've talked a lot about Actionsteps and NetDocs, but get Outlook into that process, maybe get your VoIP phone system into that process, making sure all of those systems actually talk together, so you're actually not copying and pasting, having to manually sync all this stuff. It's just key if you're going to be running an efficient law practice for your customers.
Yeah, one of the things that really awed me about Actionstep was the way it just instantaneously syncs with my Outlook calendar on my phone. It's just, that's not to be taken for granted if you have used other software. So
and to the point that it doesn't feel like you're in Outlook or you're in Actionstep, it just feels like the two have molded together, which is perfect. It means you're not having to keep switching every single time. Right,
and the the calendaring in Actionstep, I can see what everybody else is doing at the same time, or on a day-to-day basis. It's was more difficult to do that when we were using just Outlook for our calendaring. So that's a great feature I love with Actionstep.
I love that. Thank you for calling that out. And Tamara, so you've had such a great experience moving to the cloud, and your firm has really been successful with it. So what advice do you really have for other firms who are looking to move to a cloud-based practice, in order for them to be just as successful and get the same efficiencies that you guys are now enjoying?
Just really identify what your needs are now. And like James said, what are your plans to grow in the future? Make sure you get software that that can meet your needs now and into the future, because, you know, it's to make the switch from, you know, into a software, you know, is work up front. I mean, it's well worth it. So research, do those demos, talk to other people, you know, hire people that are, you know, not afraid of technology. Obviously, you know, people are at different comfort levels with technology. Actionstep and NetDocuments are very user friendly, both of them. But if you have somebody that is kind of afraid of technology, you got to meet them where they're at, right? So you know, one of those attorneys at my firm who was just embraced the entering his own time right away. You know, we've been with Actionstep for a couple of years now, and just the other day, I sat down with him and showed him how to edit his own bills. So, and he was so afraid that, you know, he's going to end up with 0 billable hours at the end of the month because, you know, he did it himself. I'm like, no, it's okay. So, you know, really just let people adapt slowly and develop their comfort level. You know, you're not going to be paperless all at once. So it's a progression.
I think that really is key. I think people are just so afraid of disruption and, you know, afraid of that, you know, I'm going to get judged if I do something, like I'm not going to perform as well if I do something wrong and I don't understand the technology. So that's such a good point to really take them like slowly through that process. So James, along those same lines, you know, you're talking earlier about getting useful and timely data for law firms. How does having that really help them drive better business decisions, you know, especially during the change management process or on their client services?
Good question. Yeah. So as I said in my introduction, I've been part of lots of different departments in Actionstep, and I've been part of the hundreds of implementations of Actionstep systems, many of those NetDocs, and it just, as all three of us have said before, just having the data in the system to start with it's what underpins all of that, having it in the right place. And as Tamara said, having all the staff, you know, entering the data in a timely manner is the base layer for what you need. This seems obvious, but sometimes if you lose track of that, suddenly you don't have the report you need, the key KPI that you're looking for. So that's probably the first part. Once you've got that data in, then obviously having it in those reports, whether it's just list views or whether it's some powerful BI, you know, pretty bar graphs and pie charts and things like that is the next step. And then having set KPIs and set targets. So knowing that this is the response time that I want to respond to my customers in. This is the billable hours I want to track and have all my fee earners recording. And, you know, these are the newsletters that I want my customers engaging me with and my clients like working with us on as well. So once you have all that, I guess the biggest impact is just the client impact that you can have, because if you enter your data in, if you make sure you manage it correctly and act upon the trends that you see, the final impact is just going to end up being a better client experience, because you're managing to streamline your processes, you know, collect the data that's relevant to you and to them, and acting upon it.
I love that. Tamara, how have you seen how this, you know, how the efficiencies that you guys have gained have really impacted clients? Just like James was saying, how that it will help those client services. How have you seen that happen in real life?
I think that it happens organically because I have more time to spend with my client. You know, did I mention that how much I love having everything on one screen, right? Like Actionstep and NetDocs. I don't have to go back and forth between tabs. It's all there. You know, I can see if a client owes me money, if a client's, you know, has paid me money so that I can thank them. I can see if they've talked to my assistant because there's going to be a note in Actionstep. So I think it just makes me be able to be more present for the client when they actually reach out and talk to me, because I'm not worrying about all these other issues. I'm not running around the office looking for a file or a sticky note that on my assistant's desk or whatever the case may be. Everything's right there. So I think that, you know, the client finds me to be more accessible. I think, you know, I think we've already mentioned the document sharing with the client. The action step billing, you know, allows me to do away with those paper bills that nobody really wants to get anymore. I mean, honestly, one of my favorite things about Action Step, and I'm sorry, I'm digressing because you were talking about the clients. Now I'm about to tell you how quickly I get paid, which, but I know when the bills go out with Action Step because I can see those payments coming in. You know, I think that's really a good feature for clients too. You know, they always, it's part of communication. Part of communication is talking to you about your case. It's also, you know, letting you know where your account stands with us and making things easy for you, you know, on the back office end too.
Yeah, for sure. I know for me, like if it comes in the mail, if it comes in my email, I'm like 1,000 times more likely to pay something. So,
right? It's like just click and there you go.
I was just thinking if I had to write a check for something, I couldn't do it. I would have to go and get checks.
Yeah, I legit don't have checks anymore. Just need to put in my card number. Well, I love that. Kind of shifting the optic a little bit, you know, we've been talking a lot about remote work and how having cloud-based software has made it so you're more efficient and everything. There is a question in the market about if virtual practices are really the way of the future for law. And if, you know, as we have small law firms who are starting up and solo firms, if they really will just operate completely virtual and just do away with offices, because that's usually your biggest overhead anyway. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think of that, if they should do that, if that's even a good idea, or if you still think that we're going to need offices in the future for that face-to-face client interaction.
Is that for me?
Yeah, sorry, Tamara.
Okay. No, that's great. Yeah, I thought so. I mean, I think there's, as a solo, can you know, work completely remotely and then maybe have shared space somewhere? Absolutely. I think, you know, it's going to depend on the size of your firm, probably vary in the community, because, you know, our office is in a, you know, sort of a smallish town where people, you know, just have known that we've been here for 40 years. So, and I think it depends on the type of law you practice. You know, usually people aren't contacting lawyers because everything's going fantastic in their lives. I mean, there's certain areas where that's the case, but I think, you know, where I practice, there's always going to be that face-to-face, you know, human interaction. But I don't think anything's ever going to go back to the way it was. You know, I think I mentioned earlier, people aren't going to take off work early to come interview me to see if they want to hire me. They're going to do it over, you know, electronically. You know, I think Zoom court is here to stay as much as I've seen some horrifying things in Zoom court, you know, including I probably shouldn't get a divorce story, but including flushing toilets and things like that. But, you know, I think it's, you know, things have changed forever. And so clients are going to expect these options from us, you know, to be paperless, more accessible, you know, which are the two things that Actionstep and NetDocs certainly help with.
Awesome. I think that's great insight. I do want to hear your war stories though at some point. Those sound entertaining. Okay, well, finally, just one last question for James and Kyle. And James, if you can start us off. Where do you really see innovation in the marketplace going? You know, keeping virtual firms in mind and how we're in this new reality of more of a hybrid model for interacting with clients. Where do you see innovation in the marketplace going, and what is Actionstep really going to focus on? And then Kyle, when James is done, if you can tell us where NetDocuments is going to focus.
Of course, yeah. I can only speak for Actionstep, but I think a lot of firms are thinking similar things to us. My answer is going to be a bit abstract, but innovation for us is going to come around self-sufficiency, which is quite a broad, you know, abstract term. But by that, I mean exactly what Tamara was just talking about, how the fact that you have everything on your screen. You can see the file notes that your assistant made. You can see the bills that you've paid and that you've sent out and you're waiting for payments on. And you can see the documents and you can see other people making their notes in them. all from your desk, potentially at home. So it means that you don't have to run after, the human glue in the firm doesn't need to be there. So you don't have to run over to your assistant's desk to, check her sticky notes, and you don't have to check the mail for any checks that have come in. So enabling that self-sufficiency so that people can work from home, from a coffee shop, from the office, from court, wherever they are. I think that's where the innovation is going to come, and specifically, it's going to be accessibility across all devices. It's going to be intuitiveness of the system so that anyone in the firm can use it by themselves without having to tap their coworker on the shoulder. And then workflows as well. So making sure that the manager can set a predetermined path for certain cases and say, hey, like,
Oh no, I think James froze.
and these are the documents that for you. So making sure you have all that there is key, basically. So yeah, self-sufficiency, a long-winded answer, but I hope that makes sense.
You're good. Thank you, James. Kyle, where do you see NetDocuments kind of taking this innovation in the marketplace?
I agree with James, right? I think that the future of technology is user-centric, and I completely agree. Zoom Court is here to stay, and nobody wants to have to explain to a judge that they're not a cat. So everything needs to be simple and intuitive, and NetDocuments is extensible, and we play well with others. So we're going to integrate with the applications that you use every day, so you're not going to have to change how or where you work. The single pane of glass has been brought up of I can see everything in Actionstep and NetDocuments at a glance, right? But what if you're collaborating? Tamara, you've mentioned Teams several times, right? Remote work tends to need remote collaboration. I can't just walk over, Michelle, to your desk and ask a question, throw some papers down, come to an agreement. So we've built out a purpose-built legal messaging application called ND Thread, which allows you to have streamlined, matter-centric conversations where you can have meaningful discussions, review documents, and include external participants like clients or experts into kind of limited access chats. So you're not trying to capture their text messages that they're sending you or having to give out your personal phone number. I think that email red lines are going the way of the past. And Tamara, you've mentioned this, but we've got a new tool called Margin Notes that's part of our plan solution, which you can actually have a dynamic conversation on top of a document. It is version specific, so you can make your iterative changes and not have any conversational debt. And you can have multiple people inside of the document in NetDocuments at a single time having that conversation. And then Teams is the future. The world has or is considering picking up Microsoft Teams. However, there's a risk for data sprawl in that. So unmanaged backends like OneDrive or SharePoint could result in, maybe an ethical wall being breached unintentionally through the use of Teams. So NetDocuments has developed a phenomenal integration with Microsoft Teams that's designed for and by legal professionals. So you can seamlessly video conference with that client who's interviewing you virtually and have their client matter file right there in a single pane of glass, just like you can within your timing and billing system. So there's not going to be the risk of sensitive data being stored outside of your document management system. And I think all the innovation that we drive towards drives at one thing, improving the experience of legal professionals so that you stop working to work and have more time and energy to focus on results that are meaningful to your clients.
I love that. Those are great points. And wonderful answers, all of you. Thank you so much. So that wraps up our panel questions. And I just appreciate so much the time each of you has taken for this discussion. At this time, we want to open it up for Q&A. So if there's any participant or attendees that would like to submit questions, please feel free to submit them now. We do have one that already came in, and we didn't talk explicitly about this, but maybe James and Kyle and Tamara, if you have any insight as well, if we can explain further how the integration between Actionstep and NetDocuments really works and what users can expect, that would be that was a question that came up that we'd like to understand more.
Okay, yeah, and it's kind of the reason why we're all here is because Actionstep and NetDocs over the last 6 months, I would say, we've realized that we need to improve our integration. As it was a strong integration to start with, but we realized that hey, we can really make this an even tighter experience. And the goal on Actionstep side was to make sure that for those wanting the best of the best document management system, we wanted it to not only collaborate with Actionstep, we wanted it to feel as if it was a part of Actionstep. So that is in the way that we built it. I know Carl can speak on some of the specifics maybe, but for us, it was just making sure that if you generate a document using Actionsteps generation features, they go into the right place with the right tags into NetDocuments, no matter if you're generating them for a workflow or just an ad hoc document, just a letter or something that you needed. And then just making sure that the basic, systems are talking to each other, the same file references, the same client information, really basic stuff like that. But yeah, Carl, I didn't want to.
No, and I think that's absolutely it. I think that one, we've talked about having, it feels like one platform. You are in Actionstep, you can see everything, you click on documents and NetDocuments is there. So it's a seamless experience and users don't feel like they're using two systems. The document generation, I lit up, James, when you said that, because it is so cool that as part of an Actionstep workflow, a document gets automatically generated, saved and profiled into NetDocuments, meaning that, your work does itself for you practically. That was one of the coolest things that I found. And I also think that something not to be taken for granted is the tie-in between the two, having the same client ID numbers in both places, having your matters automatically create. If a name changes, you can automatically change the name by changing it in Actionstep, and it's reflected in both places. As you close or place a litigation hold on a matter, it's going to flow seamlessly back and forth between the two platforms. And Tamara, you mentioned that you had 3 different systems that you had to manually do that in, and that's time that takes you away from turning billable hours and servicing your clients when it can happen in one single action with the NetDocuments and Actionstep integration.
And I'll jump in here for a second, because hearing you and James talk about workflows and integrations, it makes me realize I've completely neglected to talk about workflows as one of the reasons that we were drawn to Actionstep, because you tie a workflow, you come up with the tasks, and it's tied to whatever the matter type is. So going back to the client experience, I don't have to constantly ask my assistant, did you do this? Are you going to send this letter out? What's going to happen next? Because, it all gets tied in. When you open the matter, there's a task. I can see whether it's been done or not. If there's a document that gets associated with that, a retainer letter, that all is so much easier with the integration, and particularly the integration that James and Kyle were just talking about now. Again, consistent customer experience, more time for me to be a lawyer, more time for my assistant to do things that aren't sort of menial tasks.
Doing more of what you love, right?
Yep.
So, I love that. We did have another question come in as well. And Tamara, this is for you. Assuming you were part of selling internally, but even of like trying to convince people to bring on technology internally, what was your experience in justifying the expense of technology to partners who were averse to it and maybe didn't want to bring it on?
I think that the efficiencies that we gained they really paid for the increased cost. And I guess to my partners' credits, the ones that were more paper centric, when they actually saw the efficiencies, like getting their time, improving their billable hours, things like that, sort of brought them along. I think you also have to make the point that this really is not optional anymore. And like I said, don't expect them to be paper free right away. You're going to have people that are still going to be printing things out. But I just think with these 2 products, like I said, they're just so user friendly, and they really do make your life easier. That maybe if somebody's hesitant, bring them in on a demo with you, because as soon as we started educating everybody about what these products offer them as far as features, I guess that's my long-winded answer, is educate them. Don't just say this is the way it is. Show them the product and let them accept it, by demonstrating its features.
Well, and probably let the efficiencies speak for themselves too, right? So that they can really buy into it.
Yeah.
So.
And I'd go and say one of the most expensive parts of investing in legal technology is the setup costs, really. And making sure that you set up the system right is one of the most expensive parts. But really, if you set it up right, it pays dividends in the future. And the idea, and this kind of goes back to your first question about, you need to have technology that doesn't go out of date. Because if you are investing in technology that goes out of date every 3 years, that's every 3 years you then have to pay another consultant to come in and build a whole new system for you. So that's something we're trying to avoid for our customers, because we only want them to go through one onboarding process and then just stay with Actionstep for as long as physically possible, because that's keeps your costs down, and obviously then has benefits for the customer and less disruption for the firm, for the end client as well.
Well,
Yeah,
and so go ahead, Tamara.
I was just going to say, I totally agree, James. When we, pulled all of our data out of those different places, we absolutely invested in that, bringing in one of Actionstep's partners to help us with that. Unless you have your own IT department, smaller firms like us don't have that. And so, we were able to get some really competent help and set it up right. And yeah, it was, a bit of money, but it was well worth the investment. It was well worth the investment, because I still have to be a lawyer. I can't supervise that kind of a project, and you really do need to invest up front to get it set up right.
And I think that it is an investment, and it's important to make that investment and get buy-in, as you suggested, Tamara, from seeing the solution and seeing the efficiencies gained. So those people that may be holdouts can envision their new path forward with technology. And James, to your point of, it's not just making a shift from system to system every couple of years, but if you're on an on-premise system that requires servers are expensive, and licensing for that is expensive. And then to manually, take the firm offline for a period of time to replace hardware or update on-premise software is no small feat. And then you're introducing a consultant again that you need to pay over and over and over. And potentially, if you don't do that, you're on an out-of-date service that is opening your firm up to risk. So having solutions like NetDocuments and Actionstep that are auto-updating in the background, always making sure you're getting the latest and greatest in terms of features, performance, security enhancements with no impact to the firm, with no thought, allows you, Tamara, to be a lawyer and not an IT professional, like you mentioned.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we made the transition, but you remind me that, yes, part of the analysis is, okay, here's how much we're paying for this physical server, and doing that, well, we're not going to have to pay for that over time, and, making that part of the analysis. Because it is a money saver, and you're just reallocating perhaps resources that you spent one way, and now you're just spending them, a new way.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great way to put it. Well, that's all the time we have for questions today. So we just want to thank everyone again, Kyle, James, Tamara, for joining us and answering those extra questions, as well as the panel questions. For our attendees, if you are interested in learning how the new NetDocuments and Actionstep integration can help your firm, create a seamless experience for your users, really streamline matter and workspace creations or closings, auto-generate documents to smooth workflows, please do not hesitate to contact us. You can contact Actionstep at sales@actionstep.com or NetDocuments at info@netdocuments.com. This webinar is also going to be available to view within the next few days, so please watch out for an email on that. And thank you again, everyone. It was so nice having you. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.